Hi everyone, my name is Sergei Gobulev. How are you? All good? How many people have here who are designers? Okay. Developers? No. Okay. We're not going to talk anything bad about them anyways. So today in the next 25 minutes I'm going to talk about how you can use Lean UX technique and methods and rapid prototyping to make sure that you actually achieve the sustainable UX design, whether you're in a startup or in big corporation. We all have budget constraints and time constraints. Just a little bit about myself. Apparently I've been head of IT in Computer Meerkat, but that's not really the case. So I'm what my colleagues call me diviner, combination of designer and developer. And in the past 10 plus years I've been helping on UX design in a variety of companies, from tech ones to financial institutions, as well as mentoring startups in Mass Challenge, Startup Britain, and Google Campus. And just like Steph mentioned, I'm running School of UX Design on weekends in London. I want to give back the knowledge which I gathered throughout my industry experience with pretty much anybody, from designers to developers to lawyers and pretty much anyone. And I myself, with my best friend Vitaly, who is a talented developer, run different bootstrap projects. So from Apple Watch application to different web apps. So I know what it's like to start from scratch and finance a project with your own money, and to start from the blank canvas, to get user research, to understand the market, and then understand your users, design it, build it, and get it on the market. And to be honest with you, from my experience, the getting on the market bit is the most challenging. So with the next 25 minutes, we're going to talk about 4 things. So first of all, how to run Lean. Nothing to do with food, but with design. How we can prototype it, all your designs, in a bootstrap manner. How we can test it, which is very important, like Damian mentioned in previous talk, as well as how you must keep in mind development when you're designing things. So, starting from running Lean. This is actually, from my perspective, how the industry is at the moment. In the big companies and startups, we have tons, piles of documentation produced, technical specs, different design, solution design, application design, documentation, which is always rushed because you need to kind of submit it to the business stakeholder for them to get the project financed. And then what's happening in the end that we don't have actually enough time to design the product, so we're rushing it. And once we design the product, we kind of don't have time to develop it. So it kind of becomes UX on crutches, what I call, right? So instead of focusing on actually designing the product and user experience. And usually designers who kind of want to be UX designers, they are creating illustrations for those documentation packs, okay? And there is also this kind of, and one more thing, Inspector Colombo said all the time, annoyingly. Developers keep coding away those features, this dump of backlog features which are not prioritized well because, well, we don't have enough time because we wrote a lot of documentation. And I totally agree with CEO of Jaguar, so that if you think that design is expensive, you should think about the cost of the bad design, and that is exactly the case. By the time you develop, and development is the most expensive bit of your software creation, you kind of imagine spent 6 months on development. You realize, oh, actually nobody needs this thing which we designed and developed. So maybe there's a better way for us to do the design and validation. And to start with, you might think, well, it's kind of obvious to understand what the problem you're solving and what kind of task we're tackling. But trust me, whenever you run this in your workshops with your teams, everyone goes just with their opinions around the place. So this is called Lean Canvas, and you can find the template online very easily by Googling it, which simply defines the problem and the problem solution. You have the key metrics, and this is what you do as an exercise in the very beginning of the project to define actually, well, is it a real thing? Is this a thing we're solving? And trust me, there will be so much of arguments between the senior stakeholders, and designers and developers, but this is a must to do. And coming to what is Lean UX, Ash Maurya wrote a really cool book called Running Lean, which I recommend you reading, which explains in simple steps actually what is this Lean UX. Well, instead of producing tons of documentation like I mentioned before, you set your hypothesis. Okay, we think our customers need this, and we're going to do this to solve it. We prototype it after that. Okay, we don't produce any documentation, and then we go and validate it with users by doing user testing, which I'm going to cover later. And we evolve it all the time. Okay, we evolve fast and fast. Pretty much get user testing done on iterative manner, and adding value, and what's called reducing waste, which is documentation. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to fail fast, because, like I mentioned, we don't want to spend 6 months of development time and a lot of money, and in the end, who is going to blame the failure of the project? Or who's going to blame? Designers and developers. So this is quite an important way to do things. And how we can do it? By prototyping it. So in terms of when to do it, answer is as soon as possible. If you're working in the sprint manner, okay, working in Agile, your development sprint, let's say sprint N, is working on a particular set of features, right? You as a UX designer should be working sprint ahead, so that by the time you get ready with the designs, you test them, you validate them, you actually don't waste developers' time. So they don't sit and wait, hey, are you there yet? Are you there yet? Are you there yet? So we are ready with all designs, we have got them validated, signed off by business, and developers can actually code it away. And Tom Chi, who is co-founder of Google X is an R&D lab in Google. They were working on the Google Glass. He said, prototype rule number 1, find the quickest path to experience. In fact, you might guess what this thing is. This is the first prototype of Google Glass, which is kind of some protectors called hangers, some glass projectors, and netbook. But hey, they've done it in 24, 48 hours. And that's the main thing, that you want to do it quick, you want to get in front of users and actually validate it. And then when we come to, in fact, design it, design this prototype. This is the common scene I see when you have collaborative design, okay, in brackets, in quotes. You have one designer in front of the computer, and you have dozens of stakeholders around and say, okay, I think you should do this, you should do that, tweaking the mockups, changing the flows. Well, is it really collaborative? So I thought maybe we should bring the paper prototyping back. Why not design something together, okay, abstracting ourselves from technology? Your business stakeholders don't know how to use Photoshop. Should they know how to use Photoshop? No, it's probably your job. And anyone can do it, right? We don't want to kind of limit put ourselves in silos. So you can bring in your, like somebody asked in a previous talk, bring your CEO, bring your developers, bring your business analyst, all the stakeholders, and you can prototype it together using Protopaper Kit. So, in fact, I've been also prototyping the prototyping kit, which I was testing with different users, and you can see this is a quick mock-up of the website with simple carousel, header, different blocks, and in fact, you can also have it magnetic. So that imagine in your UX lab or just in your office, you can have a magnetic board sitting so that anyone passing by, you think, oh, actually, I have an idea how to implement this feature better. So you can, in fact, lay out all your UI controls and prototype things. That's one of the ways of doing things. And moreover, good old paper never runs out of juice, so you don't have to think, oh, well, they've plugged this thing. In fact, I didn't plug my laptop. So, of course, there's paper, you can go digital. And I always suggest going as simple as possible. Well, not everyone has got the latest browser, in big corporations especially. And not everyone has got specialized tools or apps. But I'm sure most of vendors have got Acrobat Reader. So why not use PDF for prototypes? Essentially what we have is, imagine the collection of your static mockups, step by step with different states of your UI design and your flow of user experience. And what you essentially do, you are having the kind of mapping of all your controls. When you click on this button, which is not essentially a button, it's just a hotspot, the PDF should go on another page. And when you put this PDF on a full screen, you won't believe how business stakeholders don't realize, oh, isn't it a real working app? But hey, that's the whole point. And how you can do it? Well, PowerPoint. You'll be surprised. It's a damn good thing. And you can have your controls library in PowerPoint. You can have different states. So, starting from, we have different, let's say, states for the login form. One is the default state, another one with an error. And all we do, let's say, we want to say on click of login button, go to the next screen. And voila, we have a special action on it. And you have PowerPoint used as prototyping tool. Or Balsamiq is another great tool, which is quite affordable. It's kind of producing sketchy style designs, but it does the job. And in both of these, you can just save as PDF, send it to business stakeholders, run it during presentations as a walkthrough, and just have these clickable areas in your mockups. Very simple. Of course, you can use more advanced tools like InVision. I'm not sure most of you have heard of. And for me, it's kind of a PowerPoint on steroids. There's one caveat, by the way. If you use InVision, all the stuff you design there is leaked on the internet. Okay? And if your manager or business stakeholder finds out, so you probably don't realize in the beginning, you think, oh, okay, that's cool. But then imagine if you work on something confidential. All this stuff is not sitting locally, it's leaked. And it's not difficult to hack any website these days, if anyone wants. Whereas, if you use Azure, which is another tool for prototyping, which in fact produces code behind, so you can have a complex logic, even special JavaScript instructions. This guy allows you to work locally. So whatever you produce, you can export locally as a package, you can zip it, you can put it on SharePoint, and yeah, it's internal. So this is pretty good for doing something which you don't want to be visible outside of the internet. Quite important to remember. Another way of prototyping is in browser. I think this is a lot of, that's quite often what tech leads in different companies want designers to do. Like, stop producing those static mockups, okay? Just come in and let's start prototyping coding as quick as possible. So we can be Bootstrap, as in Bootstrap framework for UI design. And you have your quick prototype in a browser. You click F12, which launches developer tools. And this is the toolbar for developer tools. So you can change the different options for CSS, for HTML. But I think you might ask, hey, whatever I'm doing when I'm debugging a website in the browser is lost with it when I close the browser. But that's the beauty of something called workspaces in Google Chrome. You can add your folder into workspaces and also map it to file system resource, which means whatever you are going to edit within this area, okay, so let's say I'm going to edit HTML, CSS for it in Chrome Developer Tools, it's going to be saved locally, which means it's not a throwaway code. You can actually give it to a developer and say, listen, I know you didn't have time to tweak that thing which I really wanted. So I already coded it for you based on your code. Here's a copy. Done. Okay? And of course, it's important to test things. And I remember Damien mentioned in a previous talk about this opinionated design. this is what we don't want to avoid, what we want to avoid. Okay, of course, Ricky Gervais, but there is something called boss's experience, where your boss thinks, I think it's the right thing to do. We should be doing this. I don't care. I don't want to listen to you. And for that, we should be really inviting your boss to user testing, where we validate their assumptions. And hey, if your boss is still against what users think, well, is it the right place for you to work in? That's another question. And Fight for UX guys, which is a design agency, they created really cool posters, you know, this type of vintage style. And they're absolutely spot on. Fight for the best, always test. That's what we should always be doing. Never show design which hasn't been tested. This is one of the UX researchers from Norway, she quoted. And there are different ways of doing it. I always focus on practical things. Okay, this is how what tools you can use. From what users do, which is currently being shown on the video on top. It's essentially, you produce a prototype, you put it online, and you go to what users do at usertesting.com, and you hire, let's say, 6 users who are, let's say, in their mid-30s, living in North England, and who are working in engineering. Okay, this is your target audience. And the user, in fact, is given your script. So you say, hey, how would you go and purchase those construction tools in our new store? And the user narrates it. So it's pretty cool thing. You don't have to go far. That's my message here. You don't have to, although it's great to go in the wild, but you can do it within the next 15 minutes. You can hire a user, have remote testing. You got a video like shown on the top with voice narration. And hey, can you really beat 15-minute user testing and results in front of you based on your prototype? And Usability Hub is also a cool platform, but although it has got a lot of designers who are reviewing the work, so probably it's not necessarily your target audience, unless you're designing for designers. And once you have your prototype, in fact, what you can do is you can hook up Google Analytics. So this is the site of School of UX, and I've been organizing UX conference, and I wanted first to know whether people are even interested in it, right? So how would you do it? Well, of course I can organize a conference and get speakers and so on and so forth, which is done now, but back then it was simply the button on the page, and what I do, I hook up the event, which is on click, send to Google Analytics the event, okay? An event is click book button, okay? So what it helps me is when I go to Google Analytics at the back end, I in fact have goals for those buttons. So let's say tracking how many people click book button by creating this new goal called click book. And then once you set up the goal, you track it, okay? So I can see, okay, it looks like today 81 person clicked on the button. You might think, but hey, if you haven't done anything behind the button, like it's a bit cheating, isn't it? Well, imagine if you would build the whole website, the entire product, and only 2 people clicked on the link to go there. You wasted so much money. Have you actually upset anybody if you don't have 2 people? The only person you upset is your boss who paid for this project, okay? And even if when you click on it, what you can say, listen guys, we're still working on it. How about you leave us your email or phone, and we're going to get back to you once we're ready. So I thought, okay, 81 people interested, let's do it. And in fact, this is quite a similar way how Amazon was approaching expansion of their business, where in the beginning, they were selling books. Now they sell everything. So, and how did they know what people want? Well, people were starting to put in search criteria. Okay, I'm looking for stationery. I'm looking for the mop. I'm looking for the iron. And they say, okay, so it looks like a lot of people looking for stationery. Okay, stationery supplier, let's bring some stock. And started selling more and more products. Again, they are learning from testing their solution on the market by, in fact, hooking up all those different events and thinking, okay, there's interest in that. Let's bring that product into the market. And then, last but not least important is, like I mentioned, you need to mine the code. And the reason for that is you don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by designing something which developers cannot implement. Okay, it's kind of silly. And for that, we need to make sure we understand technical limitations. Okay, because you might think, oh, these days every platform in framework is so powerful. No, really. You have the biggest frameworks in the world, which are so damn slow. And because what we want to achieve is 60 frames per second, okay, which is buttery smooth performance. And hard truth is, you as a designer, you're going to be crying at some point. After 6 months of implementation, you're going to see this and think, oh my God, what happened to my original design? So you have to be ready to sacrifice. And in order for you to avoid this shock, okay, you probably should be doing UX QA as often as possible, working together with developers. Understand what they're up to. Okay, what we can compromise. Is it worth compromising this or that? And I really suggest learn a bit of DOM and jQuery, basic coding. Okay, just a bit. You don't have to know JavaScript and code models and all the logic behind, not necessarily. And there's a book for that. I really recommend you reading a book apart series of books. They're called brief books for people who make websites. Just 100 pages, straight to the point. And you can see, especially for designers, you have how to do CSS, responsive design HTML5. Okay, very, very handy. And if you want to go extra level and you, at the same time, don't want to learn JavaScript, there is a UILine framework, which is kind of abstracting the notion of JavaScript, which for you as a designer is going to be quite painful. What it allows is to define interactions, define the logic in a simple sentence. So on this occasion, you want to add some effect when you click on try button. And all you simply do is you write, clicking on this button toggles class this on that. That's way simpler than writing different functions. And of course, the most important thing is, you need to be nice to developers. We don't want this kind of working in silos and throwing just mock-ups behind the fence and at your developers and they're struggling, you don't care about them. We want to work together. So do QA as much as possible, do UX research together, and we both have really great work ethics. So, time flies. In the past 25 minutes, we covered how to run Lean, how you can use Lean UX approach, and in fact, how you should set hypotheses, you should validate it by building a prototype, user test it, and in the end, keep iterating. And how you can prototype using simply paper prototyping, paper kits, how you can use PowerPoint, whichever one has, export into PDF mockups, and as well as Balsamiq, Azure, InVision. Remember, confidentiality, InVision, don't work together, and test it as often as possible. What users do, usertesting.com, so there's plenty. And of course, remember, maybe you should want to learn a bit of development. So, thanks so much. I hope you've learned something new. Any questions? I'm here.
Great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Do we have some questions? Yes?
So in terms of prototyping PDF versus PowerPoint, would you say they're sort of comparable, equally comparable, or there's one in particular?
So you use PowerPoint and Balsamiq to export your design mockups into PDF. PDF is a means to deliver the prototype, mock prototype. Any other questions?
But presumably you could use anything that you can create a...
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't tried myself using a SketchUp or Illustrator or Photoshop. I'm not sure whether they're allowed to do the hot spot mapping of particular elements. But it's essentially what you do with PowerPoint, just like this one. It's a sequence of slides. Think of it as a sequence of your design mockups. And you're saying, when you click on this particular area on your slide, it goes to another slide. And that's it. If you run it on full screen, you won't notice the difference whether it's actual app or website or fake prototype.
Great. Handy tip, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions?
Okay. I'm going to be around here if you want to speak to me.
Okay.
Tete-a-tete.
So I'd actually like to know a little bit more about your school of UX. I don't know if you'd like to just take
Yeah.
the opportunity to tell us a little bit about
Absolutely. Well,
what you told us today. Is this the sort of stuff you...
oh, I'm right on time.
Time is up.
Exactly.
Is this the sort of stuff that you're teaching your students, or if you call them students?
That's right. I did find that there's a lot of kind of very vague and very expensive ways to learn about UX design, and also there is video tutorials which kind of, even if you buy them, we know they're there, we're going to watch them at some point, but we never do. So I thought, okay, and I don't want to quit my job in order for me to understand, do I really want this UX design thing? Okay, so, and I thought, okay, I want to give back and, you know, share my experience with fellow designers, developers, pretty much anybody on a weekend, okay, when you have spare time, if you want to move on to a new role. And we actually had a lawyer, in fact, a couple of weeks ago. Sergei, I hate my job, I want to move to UX. I said, okay, great, come over. So, and he doesn't have to spend much, he doesn't have much time, much money, and we have workshop sessions as well. So, UX, UI, how to get into career, and a lot of practical tips and tricks.
So is it kind of a drop-in thing, or do you sign up for a course?
You sign up for it. It's a three-hour session on Saturdays, and in the actually what we're doing in June, we are creating the UX conference when we're gathering all of our students. Okay, and I invited people from Tesco, from Deutsche Bank, you know, from what users do, to actually give a professional experience and teach via workshops. So yeah.
Okay, great. Sounds really interesting.